All right, what's happening? What's happening, guys? Happy Tuesday to you. It is Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. This is episode 370 of Morning Perspective. And this morning, we're going to talk about how to get yourself out of a bad spot. Everybody's been there. Some of you might be there right now. We're going to talk about how to get yourself out of that bad spot. Let's get started.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
All right, what's happening, guys? Good morning to you. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are having an awesome morning, man. It is a beautiful morning here in Pittsburgh. Up early, got to the gym this morning. I didn't feel like going to the gym this morning, and I made it. So that is a huge victory. Today was, day 30-something of my 160 days that I'm going to make it to the gym straight, that I'm going to work out, I should say, because sometimes I'm traveling and I can't make it to the gym. But 160 days straight is my goal this morning. Man, I really didn't feel like it, but I made it anyway. And so I checked the box this morning, and that is a big victory. You know, those days when you don't feel like it and you overcome, those are more important than the days that it's just easy to get up and go, and you're just kind of in your routine. But this morning, man, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go to the gym, but I made it. So I hope you guys are having one of those mornings too, where you're overcoming those things that are in front of you. So this morning, we're going to talk about how to get out of a bad spot. You know, what does it look like when you're kind of in a bad spot and you need to get out of it, right? And everybody finds themselves in this spot. So, if you're one of those people that are in that spot right now, don't take it too serious. Don't get down on yourself. Just realize some of the things that you have to do that are required for you to get out of that bad spot. I think it's so important for us to understand that, there's going to be ups and downs to every month, to every year, sometimes to every week, right? And so when you find yourself kind of in one of those down weeks or down months or down periods of your life, a down season, what does it take to get out of that? That's what we're going to talk about this morning. And I'm going to share some of my thoughts. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts as we're going through this. So, but as always, first, I want to say good morning to some folks. Ed, what's happening? He's back in the pole position. Say good morning first there. Daniel Good, what's happening, brother? Good morning. Dan Hill, good morning to you. Jared, Chris, Scott, David Martin, what's happening, man? Michael Huey, good morning, man. My brother, Ryan Caddy, what's happening, man? Tammy Clark, my girl, Sharon Falk, man. We got it loaded up in here this morning. Carla Trudy, my brother, Judd, Eddie Brown, good morning. Larry, Trudy, man, they keep flying in here. I can't even keep track. Trisha, Eddie Brown, Todd, Christina, and Curtis, good morning to you guys, and thank you guys for being here. And if you guys could, click that share button, and let's get some more people in here so that some more people can know how to get out of a bad spot, because you never know, man, who is going to be needing this advice today. I've had a few conversations just this week of people who have watched this show and they watched at a different period in their life. Now they're in a good spot, but they shared with me just kind of what this show has done for them. And man, that is the best feeling in the world. So, we can help more people if you guys share this out. I don't ask that every single day because I don't want to, be that guy. But if you guys could share it out, I would greatly appreciate it, as always. So, all right. So how to get out of a bad spot? I think that, kind of when you're in the bad spot, the number one thing, obviously, that you need to do is kind of just recognize that, right? And I think that there are different places that you're going to find yourself. You're in a bad spot, but you're not exactly sure how bad it is. So it's kind of assess the situation and figure out, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this scenario that I'm in, right? Number two is once you figure out exactly kind of what the situation is, here's number two. And this is probably the most powerful thing that you can do when you find yourself in a tough position is take ownership. 100% take ownership of whatever it is, because regardless of what that scenario is, it's very easy to look outside. It's very easy to look at everybody else that's involved in the scenario and distribute blame to everybody else, right? But what's difficult to do is to stop worrying about what everybody else did and start taking ownership for yourself. Start taking ownership for how you ended up in that scenario. And a lot of times the toughest part of that is, guys, is realizing that where you are in this particular moment is really dependent on who you were years ago sometimes, right? So when you think about kind of how you got to this scenario. So let's say you're dealing with something today, and it could be something with your family. It could be with somebody at work. It could be with a friend. Well, think about how long that relationship has been, right? So think about the entire history of that relationship, the entire history of your company, maybe the entire history of your relationship with your spouse, if you're in a bad spot there. And so think about some of the things that you did before you were as aware as you are today. Some of the decisions that you made based on that guy or that girl that you were years ago. That's the hardest part to start to process, right? So if you think back to who you were 3 years ago or 7 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever it is, that situation you're dealing with is not just about who you are today. And so this is the tough part. This is why it's so important for you to take complete ownership of your part of it, because you were making decisions throughout that relationship based on the knowledge, the awareness, the abilities that you had at a particular moment in your life. So the things that you're dealing with today are the result of decisions that you made when you were not as aware. So you own that, right? And so I think that it is so important for us to understand and have the self-awareness to take ownership of the things that we didn't know back then. And that's not an excuse, by the way. That is part of taking ownership and being able to communicate to that person or those people that you're dealing with what you own, because you may have made decisions that put you in that situation. And now it's very easy to pick out the shortfalls in the other person, but it's not as easy all the time for us to have that self-awareness to look back at the history of kind of how we got there, right? And so I think it's really very important for us to understand our own responsibility and to spend the most time thinking about our own responsibility in that situation, because it's very easy to look out and distribute blame to everybody else. But it takes real courage and real discipline. Somebody just said it. Judd just said self-discipline is what it takes to take ownership of the situation that you have found yourself in. So when you find yourself in a bad spot, number one on the list is figure out how bad the spot is. Number two on the list is 100% take ownership of it yourself, right? So you got to assess the situation and immediately take ownership of it yourself. Once you take ownership of it yourself, you have to start looking around you at everything that's involved in how to deal with that scenario. And here's the key. Once you start looking around, you see all the people that are involved, you see all the dynamics that are involved. Here's what I want you to do. And this is very complex, but very simple at the same time, right? It takes a lot of thinking, but it's actually a very easy concept to kind of wrap your mind around. I want you to look out at what it looks like when that problem is solved. What does your life look like? What does everybody's life look like when that problem is actually solved? When you are out of that bad spot, what does it look like? And that feeling that you have in that particular moment, that's going to tell you a lot, right? When you start to look at what is it like when that problem is solved? Like when you look out, who immediately, when you think of that, who might be missing from your life? What does that relationship look like? Because a lot of times what happens, guys, when we deal with these challenges, when we find ourselves in a bad spot, most of the time we are in the wrong frame of that relationship. We're viewed incorrectly in that relationship. And a lot of times that's our own fault, right? Because of experiences that we've had, because of the way that we entered whatever relationship it was. And here's the key, guys, is that it is easier than you think to reframe any relationship. It's easier than you think. Doesn't mean that it's not going to take a while, but it's easier. It takes you having the emotional discipline and the emotional intelligence to be able to have an honest and real conversation with someone else, being willing to embrace the conflict and the back and forth that comes with that, the hurt feelings sometimes that comes with that. You know, it's not easy, guys, to tell the truth. It's a heavy burden to carry, to be able to tell the truth, but it is required for you to get out of any bad spot, for you to be able to tell the truth. And here's what I'm going to tell you. It is not about just the other person. It's not about you just telling the truth to the other person so that they understand. It's about you telling the truth so that you understand where you're coming from. You can verbalize that. You will actually feel a lot better about yourself when you're able to speak the truth. And here's the most important thing. You will not be resentful of another person when you are able to tell the truth. When you are able to communicate exactly how you feel and why you feel it, you will lack that resentment. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question. How many of those bad situations that you have found yourself in do you carry resentment towards somebody else? And that's kind of what's leading to that bad scenario. Many of the relationships that we have that are damaged, that are not quite in the right place, it's because we have resentment about something and we haven't verbalized that to the person, right? And so when we're able to verbalize that, when we're able to picture what that looks like at the end, and then we're able to just communicate our way through whatever resentment, whatever bad feelings we have, whatever troubles we're having in that relationship, I promise you guys, no matter how bad that ever gets, you're going to feel better on the other side of it. When we don't feel better is when we allow those relationships to sit and not address it properly. When we don't tell the truth, when we're holding something back, we're doing the wrong things for the right reasons by holding something back, trying to save somebody else's feelings. And that person actually needs to hear what it is that you say. Now, with love, with grace, with respect, of course, but that other person needs to hear that because, and by the way, they may respond with something that gives you better perspective on the entire feeling of resentment that you have. And so when you communicate that, it opens up the chambers of communication between you and another person so that they can express their position and you can express yours. But for you to get out of a bad spot, guys, the number one thing you have to do is you have to recognize how bad is the spot that you're in, how bad is that relationship. The second thing you got to do is you got to take ownership. The third thing you got to do is you got to tell the truth. You got to be willing to communicate with that person exactly how you feel and exactly how you see it. And you got to be willing to sit in that uncomfortable situation and have the conversation because nobody grows, guys, through comfort. Remember that. Nobody grows through comfort. We all grow and we all recognize ourselves more. We recognize the behaviors that we have, how we're acting, how we're behaving when people tell us the truth. I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I said, how many people in your life actually tell you the truth and do so with care and with grace and with a message that you can actually grow from? And the person said, not very many. And I said, so love on those people, man. When they are telling you what it is that you are doing wrong, some of the things that you may not see in yourself, make sure that you thank them and be genuine and really have a lot of care and compassion and appreciation for those people that tell you the truth, because most of them don't. Most people in the world, let's be honest, guys, are talking behind each other's backs and never saying the truth to your face. So when you find those people that are willing to tell you the truth, that are willing to embrace the conflict that comes along with telling you the truth, that are willing to hurt your feelings potentially for your good, make sure you appreciate them because there are not many people in the world that are going to do it for you. And so when you get those people, when they tell you the truth, you're helping two people get out of a bad spot. The other person may not even be aware that they're in a bad spot, that they're in a bad relationship with you, or that you think some of the things that you think. But if you speak openly and you have grace and compassion and love that comes along with that message, man, you can get yourself out of a bad spot, but you can also help somebody else get out of a bad spot too. In my experience, most people are trying their best. They are not trying to do things wrong. They are not fully aware. They're either partially aware or unaware of exactly what they're doing. And it is our responsibility to each other, to society, and to God to tell each other the truth, to help each other, to serve each other, to help each other get out of bad spots, right? And that is, it's just not something common to do. I've learned a lot about this over the past few years, you know, being able to embrace the conflicts that come along with it, to be willing to sit in that fire of discomfort, to be able to create boundaries, right? Set a standard in your life of how you want to live. But most of all, be willing to tell the truth, guys. Be willing to take ownership of your own stuff, and then have the courage, the strength, and the love and care for other people to just simply tell the truth. And if you are the one that is wrong, if you find yourself in a bad spot and you're the one that's wrong, man, tell the truth very quickly. Tell the truth very, very quickly, because that is the only thing that's going to get you out of whatever it is that you're in. And it doesn't have to be dramatic, and it doesn't have to be an argument. It doesn't have to be any of the things that you think in your mind that stop you from telling the truth. It doesn't have to be any of that. Doesn't have to be. And as you practice telling the truth, as you practice being more transparent, as you practice, being willing to get yourself out of that bad spot or that bad relationship or that bad feeling, it's going to be easier the next time and the next time and the next time and the next time. And eventually you start to live with a set of principles and values that just allow you to tell the truth all the time. It allows you to help people at a level that you've never been able to help them before, because they understand. If I was to tell the truth to any of you guys, hopefully you spend enough time with me here that you know that it comes from a place of love and compassion, that I want the best for you, that I want our relationship to be as deep as it can possibly be. And that comes with just being honest with each other. So think about that, guys. If you're in a bad spot, how do you get out of it? How do you get out of it? First thing you got to do is own your stuff, man. Own your part of it. Think back. How did I create this? If you start with taking ownership and you start thinking back to how this all came about in the first place, how did your relationship start? What was the frame at which you started your relationship? How did you meet each other? Example, I've had friends that got into relationships with people when they were not faithful to the person that they were with. And then those relationships fell apart. Well, the frame of how they met, right, was very wrong. And that caused conflict. It caused a lot of lack of trust. It caused a lot of different things. So when you think about that, right, think about how you frame that. You got to work through that. It doesn't mean that your relationship is toast. It means you have to work through that. You have to be willing to lean into the conflicts of life, guys, to solve the problem. And we have created this environment in society where when we get in a bad spot, man, we just wallow in self-pity and we don't do anything about it. And you got to take action. You have to lean into that. You got to think, and you got to figure out what it is that you did to cause it. How was it wrong? And how can you reframe that relationship? How can you relook at where you're at? Revisit the things that went wrong to this point and correct them, work through them, talk about them. Be willing to tell the truth, especially when it hurts and especially when it makes you look bad. Because when it makes you look bad, it's something that somebody else is thinking anyway. I hope this message was helpful, man. I saw a couple comments in here of good timing and, just people that needed to hear this. I hope this message kind of hit somebody in the right spot today. I know, all of us have been in bad spots, if not recently, fairly recently, or maybe you're going through it right now. Trust me when I tell you, start with taking ownership yourself. Assess the situation and figure out exactly all the details of what's going on around you. But assess the situation and take your own ownership and really spend a lot of time thinking about what you're responsible for and be open to taking full responsibility, because your responsibility is the only thing that you can fix. I asked this question to somebody yesterday. I said, how hard is it to fix yourself? Very hard. Then how hard is it to fix the other person? You can't. The other person has to fix the other person. The only thing you can do is tell the truth. How you interact with that person is the only thing that you can be judged by. Are you willing to tell everybody the truth? What's your part? What is your part? Don't worry about what everybody else's part is. Own your stuff. That's how you get out of a bad spot. I promise you. And as you do that, you're going to feel that weight lifted off of you. You tell everybody what you're responsible for, right? And then you speak the truth from your perspective, and you be wide open to somebody else's truth, because that is how you're going to grow. It's how you're going to learn. I promise you. It's how life gets better and clearer and more full. And listen, if the relationship ends as a result of that, it probably wasn't meant to be, guys. It probably wasn't meant to be. It doesn't mean you just give up and throw it away, but think about it. You absolutely have to own your stuff. And a great point, apologize, right? Own your stuff, apologize, be sincere. Don't worry about what other people's faults are. Worry about your own. Come from a place of grace and forgiveness and care and love. That's how you get out of a bad spot. It starts with you. All the solutions to the problems in your life, guys, are an inside-out problem. It starts within you. Deal with your own conflicts. Look at how you're interacting with people. How you interact with people defines your life. If you interact with people with care, you put other people first, you'll get the same in return. I know, because I wasn't always that way. And when I started doing it, it seems like I'm surrounded by a lot more people that do it. So that's it for this morning, guys. I appreciate all of you guys being here. I appreciate everybody that shared this out and tagged people and sent it to people. I think this is a message that a lot of people in the world need to hear. So if you didn't share it out, I would appreciate you doing that so that more people can hear this. There might be somebody in your life that needs to hear this so that they can talk to you, right? These messages sometimes hit people right at the right times, and to hear how some of these messages that God puts on my heart impact other people, that is what keeps me going, and that is why I wake up every morning and do this. That's why I'm so passionate about showing up every day. And I appreciate you guys supporting that more than you know. So thank you guys for being here. I hope that this helped a lot of people this morning. But if it just helped one, it is worth it to show up here every single morning. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. I love you guys. And I will see you again tomorrow morning, same place, same time, right here on Morning Perspective.